name's Andrew Benefield. I'm one of the fourth year medical students here, about set to graduate and move on to the next challenge of residency. It's sort of a long journey. My dad left home when I was about 9 years old, which is a difficult thing for me because I'm one of the few actual Native American students in the class, and my dad is my connection to the culture there. And when he left home, kind of lost that connection.
I'm Dr. Frida Eng. I'm Tlingit from Hoona, Alaska, and I am a graduate of the University of Washington School of Medicine, the Indian Health Pathway. I did my residency at the Seattle Indian Health Board in family practice, and now I'm a board-certified family practice physician.
My name is V. Chu. I'm a physician here in Seattle. I actually am a UW Med School alum. I'm an East Coaster. Actually, I was born in Saigon, Vietnam, but I grew up on the East Coast, and we moved to Seattle when my partner got a job at Microsoft.
When I first got involved with the Native American Center of Excellence, I was sort of still unsure of who I was as a person, really. My dad had always reminded me when I was growing up, it's just like, don't forget you are Native. And I was like, well, what's that mean? And my dad was like, well, I wish I knew. Because when he was a child, he kind of was sheltered away from all the cultural traditions of his people, and didn't learn very much to pass on to me or my brother. And so I made it sort of a point that when I got to be his age, I didn't have to tell my children, well, I wish I knew what that meant.
I didn't intend to go into medicine. I ended up as a single mom. My ex-husband had left us. I had 3 kids, no car, no money, no phone, no job, a high school education, and a graphic arts background. Went to look for a job in graphic arts, and I couldn't find any job that would pay me enough to cover the daycare.
I had a couple bad experiences establishing care with a physician when I first moved to Seattle. Within 2 minutes into the interview, when I was just establishing care, and it was a really wonderful woman who we ended up having a really great therapeutic relationship. But one of the first questions she asked me was, 2 minutes into the interview, well, I noticed you don't have a ring. Are you married yet? And I thought, what a loaded question. I don't know exactly how to answer that. I really didn't want other patients to have to be put on the defensive so early when they're in such a vulnerable position. You're sitting on an exam table, you may be wearing a gown. You want to feel safe, and I didn't feel particularly safe with that question. And so I felt it would be a good mission of mine to help open a clinic that focused on the GLBT population.
Like I was mentioning, I got to the University of Washington. I got involved with different student groups. Specifically at the med school, there's the Medicine Wheel Society, which I'm involved with still to this day. It's been very helpful in sort of giving me that piece of community, piece of belonging a little bit, sort of a safe place to go and meet people that have similar backgrounds, similar stories as mine. I think that's probably one of the strongest things about our school, is that there are many different avenues for students to get support.
The LGBT population anywhere is an underserved population. And any underserved population has extra needs that stem from them having maybe a harder background, a harder time at getting to their position in life. It was a little bit more difficult. Now, ironically, the work can be a little harder, but coming from a gay background myself, I found it to be much easier.
I am the first person in my family to graduate with a degree. My family comes from a family of fishermen in Alaska, and you don't need a degree to fish. My father actually told me, if you go to med school, what's going to happen to the kids? And so I didn't have the supportive family that some of the students come in with, and I think that happens with most of the minority students. They can be the first generation to be in college, and the families just don't know what it's like to be in college.
Empathy begins with self-identity. I think in order to provide good patient care. You have to know who you are before you can take care of a patient. And it can be a patient with a background very different from your own. But as long as you know where you're starting, you can learn how to relate to them.
My name is Christina Ardondo. I am a second-year medical student at the University of Washington, and I hope to go into public health and psychiatry, and particularly working with the Latino community. I became involved in sort of early 2007 for the fifth annual Latina Health Fair. So Latina Health Fair started, this is the 7th year, it's an annual event that was started by the Washington Health Foundation because they saw a need in the community in regards to this Latino community that we had here in Seattle that was growing every year, growing by leaps and bounds, but really had a lack of an access to care and a lack of an awareness of the options and the opportunities for them in terms of getting health care, getting insurance, getting legal care, dental care. So this fair was brought together with the help of all these community groups to pretty much bring Latinos here, give them some screening that they should be having every year, and sort of pinpointing them to places where they can get this care all year round. And hopefully there will be a day when something like this isn't necessarily needed so much, but at this point it really is.
So the value in diversity, particularly in a medical school, is huge because as a physician, you, for the most part, are relating to people who come from all different kinds of backgrounds. And even if you have a practice, let's say in an upper middle class neighborhood, perhaps, even within that group of people, they're coming from diverse backgrounds. And again, I'm not defining diversity racially. I'm defining it in a much broader context. The more people you know and the more people you've been exposed to who come from different types of backgrounds, the better you can relate to people who are not like you.
I think it makes something one-dimensional, three-dimensional. And so what I mean by that is that you can have a particular question, but have different insights based on experience or based on knowledge, skills, or whatever. And I think diversity offers that viewpoint, and it changes people's way of not only thinking about something, but also interacting with one another.
What it is a huge educational advantage. I think if you have a homogeneous group, you can learn to a certain point. But I think what really makes the difference and what makes best physicians is being able to hear different paradigms or hear different perspectives of people on a same case or a similar family that you take care of. Because again, we're not a homogeneous population, and medicine isn't homogeneous at all. It really takes innovation, creativity, and the way you can get those skills is by having different people at the table giving you the perspective.
As a physician, it's very difficult to work with a population that you don't know anything about. Different cultures think differently. Learning to be open and to embrace those differences and not be afraid of them is essential.
I think that one of the most important things in a role as a physician is to be able to try at least to put yourself in the shoes of the person that you're trying to take care of, and not just suggest a treatment that you might like but they might not like at all. You really have to develop a relationship with the patient and try to understand where they're coming from and where they stand, so that you can devise a treatment that works for them and that they can do and that feels right to them. And in that sense, diversity, even in the sense of people who like alternative medical care rather than allopathic medical care, that's also important. And so the more diversity in the broadest sense of the word you have in the class, I think the better care you can take of your patients.
Diversity for me has not been what I'm programmed to think of as diversity. So for me, I grew up in Puerto Rico, I lived in New York. I'm programmed to think of diversity as like racial and ethnic. And here it's been a little more, like for example, I've never lived in a rural area before this year. And so I went to Havre, Montana for family medicine, and I lived in a basically rural Montana, and it turned out to be a lot of fun. But for me, that's a whole new level of diversity, kind of rural versus urban, and what the different needs are there. I think that, you know, working with Native American populations is something I've gotten to do here that I had never been exposed to any Native American populations, even in New York. So that's kind of another aspect of diversity, learning about that. So there is diversity. I think it's just kind of a change in my definition of diversity.
The diversity within Seattle, I didn't realize coming here that there was a big East African population and that there was a big Asian population, and so that was actually really nice to see. Like you know, walk down the street and you'll literally see, you know, a woman covered from head to toe, and then you'll see, you know, somebody else with, you know, wearing about every color in the rainbow, and like it's interesting to see that there's that diversity of people, of thought, of religion, and so that's been very, very comforting. So like I said, it kind of really depends on your personality, and if that's the environment that you're looking for and you feel like you feel comfortable in, then Seattle is kind of a great place to be.
And even the classes too, I think, you know, in my class, definitely we have such a broad age range of people, and people who've come in, you know, from different jobs. We have people who've been lawyers already, who've been engineers, who've, you know, who've come straight from undergrad. We have the whole spectrum of people, and so we have that diversity as well.
Diversity, I feel, has been a bit of an issue here. I think that it's improving. There's definitely a movement amongst the students, especially with this Affirm group and with the OMCA, to try to target and identify diverse applicants and hopefully encourage them to matriculate if they are lucky to be accepted. I'm encouraged that I feel like there's a good foundation set up and that it'll carry on and only get stronger from here. And I'm really excited about what that'll bring for our school.